Cool. What's up, everyone? I think this works. Let me actually find that tweet. And then my other Twitter. If you're watching this afterwards, feel free to skip ahead like 2 minutes from here. I'm not actually about to start right this moment. I really hope people can hear me, because I most certainly have not used this in quite some time. So I don't even know if my setup is good. Oh crap, I don't even know if people can hear me. Whatever. Cool. I'm about to start in like a couple seconds. Mic check, mic check. I feel like everything should work. I can't imagine why things like wouldn't work. All right, here we go. So I'm about to start this, and if people join late, they can let me see, feel free to ask questions here. All right. So how do I want to start? First, let's pull up just like a fresh chart. I like Binance with Tether. I like Bitfinex, and I guess I kind of like Coinbase, and then Bitstamp. So I'll try and get like an even aggregation of all of these. I don't really use BitMEX because the volume is just entirely too much. And to be honest, I should probably take the volume out of. I'm not going to use Coinbase. I don't like Coinbase. Bitfinex, Bitstamp, Binance. Cool. All right, that's what I like. So this is currently the chart. I don't put my charts on log anymore. That's something that I've stopped doing over the past couple weeks. But just off rip, let's just talk about the most recent price action. We clearly saw an extremely sharp move up. Many people were drawing their curves. It was most certainly near parabolic, with prices going up, and curves couldn't even really fit price anymore. And now we're seeing our first legitimate retrace since price started. There was some brief consolidation here, but again, no pullbacks. The consolidation kind of floated up, And it ended up really giving you this rising wedge that we kind of broke out of. I've never seen this before, but you can totally just draw it as a channel. In hindsight, at the time it definitely looked like a wedge, but you end up having this upward consolidation. And if you look down here, you see noticeably like decreasing volume during the consolidation. This is like definitely bearish, or at least overbought behavior, right? This type of setup with increasing price and decreasing volume after this large move is overbought. So I think a lot of people were expecting like a pullback here, but that just simply didn't happen. We went up about another, let's just say 50, make it 50%. And now we're pulling back. And since we did that, from that top, we flash crashed about 20% down. We're currently about 12% down off that top. And that's kind of what's going on here. Next, I want to talk about the extremely obvious price action that caused this. And so for that, actually, when did this candle take place? April 2nd. Doesn't TradingView have a way to go back? If we can go back to April 1st, oops, that'd actually be really great. No, I know for a fact. TradingView has a way to go back in time. Do I have to like pick a time? Oh, it's just so frustrating. Because they changed their UI. It didn't used to be like this, but now it's a little more complicated. Alright, if I don't figure this out in the next like 10 seconds, I'm just gonna TradingView go back. Oh my god, back in time. Yeah, what is the bar replay? How do I do that? I hit that and I go jump to. That's what I'm saying. They changed their UI, so this bar didn't even like exist anymore. Yeah, whatever. Okay, I can't figure it out, so I'm not gonna waste too much time. But yeah, so we had downward pressure here, about 50% crash from where this. I mean, if you were on Twitter during this time, we essentially had about. Everybody was complaining about it. Would have been really hard to miss it. Do I think bull market has started? Yes and no. It depends on how you define a bull market. I'll kind of go into what I think like future price action will look like. But I don't think we're going down anymore, if that's what you mean. If you just look at price closes, we literally spent like 66 days in this distribution pattern with like a 10% spread. Like this was the most boring time. If you like trading ranges, this was great. Buy near here, sell near here, but then we came down about 50%, and then this is the first sign of oversold behavior. If you don't know what this is just on balance volume, just like normal OBV that comes stock with TradingView. Exact same like math used, but this is an oscillator. This is, who created this oscillator? Lazy Bear. Go to Lazy Bear's page and use the OBV oscillator. I love it. It makes reading divergences on volume just so much easier. You can totally still do this using just normal on balance volume. But using it as an oscillator just makes life so much easier. So you see this, you see that you had less on balance volume here on this down move, but a lower low. This basically means oversold. The amount of volume on balance does not match the type of behavior that would suggest price would move lower. And right here, you get this strong reaction of buying pressure. If you look at this, you see clearly buying volume went up. All this is above the moving average for about 1, 2, 3, 4 bars in a row, which is something we hadn't seen all back over here. And yeah, and so you got a little bounce here. So in my opinion, and if you're new to the channel, I love Wyckoff. I'm a Wyckofian trader, and how I do all my analysis, like just Wyckoff. It is the most clear way to explain what accumulation. It is the clearest way to explain price action. This literally exists on all time frames. It just simply does not matter. Wyckoff is like, everybody should look at price in this way. Okay, so here was the visible pressure down, and then here's the reaction. So this selling climax is essentially the oversold behavior that I was referring to. So in my opinion, here, let's just use the candle closes just for the sake of argument. Bitcoin wicks can get kind of crazy, so using daily closes just makes life easier because people might look at different exchanges that have different wicks. So here is where we call the selling climax, and here was the automatic reaction. And I'll label those. So here you had your selling climax, and here you had your automatic reaction, automatic rally, some people call it. Doesn't matter. It's the first sign of buying pressure that comes in after a visible downtrend. And if you wanted to look at this is the preliminary support, which is basically around here. And I'll remove that div. Actually, I'll keep it up. I'll keep it up just so you can like get used to seeing this is literally how I trade every time. I've never seen a situation where this div formed where you had less volume on a lower low and it kept dumping. It's always going to bounce. Timing it can be difficult, but the bounce will occur for sure. So then you have here, and then this was essentially like the bottom of the range. If you want to look at this, the secondary test, it kind of came down. The secondary test is when it comes down towards the climax of the selling pressure. It may or may not violate the low that the selling climax sold or selling climax had. It just depends. You have to kind of use your judgment, but this one didn't. So that's your secondary test, and that essentially marks your second support line that you're going to want to draw. Forgive me, I keep bouncing back between like the bars and the lines because sometimes I just want to use the closes of the candle. Cool. And then what you would look for next is, you know, some type of like upward movement here to, you know, give you a second resistance line. We didn't really get that. Totally fine. We don't necessarily need it. If you wanted to use wicks, this would be a time where like wicks would be useful because then you could do that. And this could have been your automatic rally. And then this was your lower resistance line, or upper resistance line. But it just depends. Oh no, I do mean lower. Okay. But whatever. Those are kind of moot points. Doesn't really matter. This is essentially the trading range that we had. The visibly obvious accumulation can be shown by two things. I'll show you one. Here goes the consolidating volume, right? Whenever you see a period of consolidation, sideways pressure, you essentially, I guess pressure doesn't matter if it's sideways, but you will not see that much volume. Volume will be low when price goes sideways, right? To let you know it's accumulation is you want to look at what does the volume look like as price goes towards the bottom of the range. Here at this point, let's just say you don't have this side of the chart and you're just here. You see price come down low towards the selling climax that you have marked. And then all of a sudden you see this right here, this candle. Mind you, we're in a downtrend. So you see this candle and it's like, okay, we're towards the bottom of the range. And we got a nice strong candle up on volume that was higher than the past 1, 2, 3. I don't even want to count this out. Weeks, right? Cool. Doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be straight bullish because we are definitely in a downtrend. And we've seen periods of consolidation before that ended up just resulting in more dumping, right? Cool. Another thing that you're going to want to do whenever you have a range, and these two things go hand in hand, which is kind of why I'm talking about 2 points at once. I'm going to show you why this candle is important. Whenever you set the top of your range, you're going to want to draw a dynamic resistance that essentially goes over all of your highs of that range, right? And so what that'll look like is kind of like, boom, here, selling pressure or buying pressure. And then you're just going to want to connect the dots on the tops of the range. And you're going to do that up until you notice high volume. And as soon as you see a candle that has high volume, you're going to want to do two things. One, you're going to want to break this line up. So this one goes and you're still connecting tops. But two, you're going to want to draw this line here. You're just going to draw it straight wherever your last point was before the volume came. This lets you know that price broke this resistance line that was forming on high volume. The reason we draw it like this is because it's just cleaner. The idea is that, and forgive me, this is going to get really messy for like half a second, but just bear with me. I'm going to do it in like pink and make them really thick just so you can see them. The idea of this is that there's a ceiling that's occurring on price that just keeps getting lower and lower. And the idea is that you want to wait for one of these resistance lines to be broken on extremely high volume. So here's a good example, right? We saw that we put a line here, price cut up above here, nice long candle, but look at the volume associated with it. It was under this moving average, right? So it stands to show that, okay, cool, it makes sense that there was a little consolidation here and then boom, completely just dumped straight through it. Not the same case with here. Price, boom, came up above this pink line here, but look at the volume. Far above the volume of its surrounding candles and above the moving average. So let me get rid of those. Now, after that happened, that's when you want to start paying attention because this is bullish behavior. Up until this point, all you know is sideways. You don't necessarily know if the sideways is going to result in up or down. All you know is sideways. But when that happens, now what you can say is, okay, I'm building a stronger case for there to be upward movement versus downward movement when all this sideways is said and done. So then you go here. And again, same thing. At this point, you should be sold. And I think I had charts. If you follow the Valerian Charts channel, you'll see this. At this point, you should totally 100% like be convinced this is, let me not say 100. You should be like 90% convinced this is accumulation by this point, right? So again, you see the same thing. Another resistance line. And then all of a sudden, price just cuts up this line, blasts straight through it on extremely high volume. And this volume was actually greater than the volume that broke this line that we had. And there was more of those candles, right? more high volume candles above the moving average. Now, this is why it's important that wherever price blasts up above your resistance line, that you take the line before it and just draw it horizontally. The reason for that is price will generally go back and retest that resistance line, which we saw here. So if you put bids here and here, then maybe you'll get partially filled, but like that's totally good. That's the goal, just to get in on the trade, even if you can't get the whole position filled. So put bids here. Price never really backed up here. It pulled back a little bit, but the buying pressure was too strong. But it definitely pulled back here, and you actually had about 1, 2, 3, 4-ish times to get filled here on the break of this resistance via this candle right here. Right? Cool. And then from there, I mean, price was just steadily moving up towards the top of the trading range. If you took a short here, don't feel bad. Makes perfect sense. To short the top of a trading range, like nobody's going to be upset with you here. Just put a stop here. But based on all of this behavior, you should totally look at this as, what do they call this? A sign of strength. And then this is also a sign of strength. And this was, I mean, I don't even know if you want to call this a sign of strength. This was just clearly the breakout. So cool. Take a trade here. Short, get stopped out. It happens. If you were long here, then like salute to you. That's outstanding. Great. Now, most people were caught off guard, even the bullish people, because price just kept going. Based off the length of accumulation that occurred here, right? Based off this price action, we would think, let's pay attention to this. This is very important. We were in this range for about 100 days with a variance of about 34%. Cool. All of this didn't necessarily mean we were going to get parabolic growth. Like at most you think, or at least you think we stop here, right? So if you look at this daily order block right here, this bearish one, this last green candle before a dump, if you draw a line straight across, let's make that purple. You would think that, cool, we reach here, price is done, and it's going to retrace back to the top of this range, right? The same idea that we had here when we said, okay, when price pumps, it's going to pull back to where it broke resistance. You would think same thing here. Price pumped, it's going to pull back where price broke resistance. That, oh, I'm sorry, my alarm went off. You would totally think that we would pull back here. We didn't. We just kind of kept pushing up through it. So I think everything that occurs within this range caught everybody off guard. It doesn't matter if you were bullish or bearish. Nobody was really like expecting that, at least not without a pullback. Cool. So I just kind of wanted to go over where price was now, went over the clear like accumulation patterns and how you can apply, Wyckoff knowledge to create literally this exact same thing. The only thing I was missing was the very last part of the diagram, the backup, the BU, which we just literally didn't get. Not to say that we won't still get it. I'm not a fortune teller. Price could totally return back here to this range. I kind of doubt it just because so many people are looking for that, but if enough people FOMO, it's totally possible. Things I kind of want to talk about now, and look at this volume, it's beautiful. Hold up. Good growth here. So here's what I want to talk about now, I guess where we're at. I'm gonna go to this weekly. We stopped at a weekly order block if you didn't realize this. Sometimes it's good to zoom out. It's this weekly order block. So here, last body of this bullish candle before extreme price dumping, right? So that's where price topped out at. We wicked up here. We're looking like a weekly pin bar here, which is very bearish and suggests some type of pullback. Maybe to this candle here. I can't say that for sure. The other support that I was looking at and that I kind of called before we just completely dumped was, let me find the candle, this candle. So this is a bullish candle that occurred back in April of last year. So price was kind of consolidating here in this range. And then we had extremely large candle here. And then this was like the last pump before, or the last pump before the last time we went up to 9K. And I've always liked that level. Price has always reacted to it. Here, nice little bounce here, bearish retest. You know, price doesn't generally stay in this blue triangle that I've drawn, this order block. If you look at it, we're generally always above it or below it, and we'll retest it. We're not really like here in the middle often. That being said, brief consolidation here that matched up with that. And then I was saying I like 71 XXX, whatever, somewhere around. Actually, I can just draw it myself. So I liked this level. I was like, yeah, price is probably going to return down to like somewhere around here, which it did. It wicked right through it, closed above it. I mean, if you had bids here, you'd be good to go. You could have closed out here, a couple $100. Cool. I'm not saying to hold on to that long if you're still long, and I'm not saying to get long here at all. I kind of don't know what price is going to do from here. In my head, I had, let me pull up another chart. I think it's my Bitfinex chart. Yeah, in my head, I had something like this where we pull back here, which I consider that part to already be done. And then we keep going here. I don't know that to be the case. I can totally foresee a situation where we consolidate for days, weeks, just between these two levels before more upward movement. There's a lot of area down here that's untested, so I can totally see a return to that level. I'll put these in purple. I could totally see a return to this level, and that's pretty much it. If we were to break this this support here and go below 3.2K, I would be shocked, actually. So we'll see, but yeah, that's pretty much like the lower boundary I see for price. Can't really imagine us returning to this level. I feel like all the accumulation that needed to occur happened here. And so now we need to reaccumulate and go sideways for a couple weeks and get ready. I have no idea where targets are. Don't ask me for targets. It just totally depends. But that's kind of like what I've been looking at as far as Bitcoin. Somebody asked me, do I think a bull market has started? I mean, like, yes, in the sense that I don't think we'll retrace anymore. There will be no more lower lows on like this type of time frame. I can't imagine us breaking this 3.2. But I don't necessarily think that we're about to have 7 more green candles. I think we're going to be in a situation where I think Bitstamp has the longest history. I think we're going to be in a situation where we just go sideways for a very long time and kind of float up towards here, and then we'll take off. But yeah, I don't know why I had July 2nd mark. I think I know why. I think I was trying to compare these two. But yeah, this is a good chart to look at. There's a more detailed one floating around that has like where Bitcoin halving takes place and periods of reaccumulation, where I'm literally just looking at uptrend, slow bleed down, flash crash, accumulation. And so I think that we're in like a larger, higher time frame accumulation period here. But yeah, we'll see where we go from here. So that's really all I have. Appreciate y'all. Feel free to ask questions on Twitter, and I will try to respond.